Welcome back to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. Well, here we go. We are plugging in and going. That's exactly what this female does, and she's super excited. She is first name Miss, middle name Go, last name Electric. I'm joking. You do such a good job of branding yourself, looking at your social media. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, you have great access to CEOs of not only just companies of automotive manufacturers, but I think what's really interesting is you're diving in really deep into the infrastructure, both two wheels and four wheels. And I think that's a real important piece that I really want to see where you've come from, where you're at, and where we're going, past, present, future. So how did you
Sure.
become Misco Electric, and where's your crown? Is it just headphones? Is that it?
I won the pageant. You mean where's my sash?
Where's your stash? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so just to give you kind of a little bit of background about me and where my career started, I actually went to school to become a sports reporter. And I did that for about a year after school. Ultimately, it was very challenging, as people that are in that field understand. At that time, everything was consolidating, and you kind of had to be your one-man band and go out to a really small little town and make very low wages and work long hours in order to try to make it. And I was not opposed to that in the sense of like the concept of it. My wallet and my bank account was, because it was like, you have all these student loans, and you're not going to be able to pay those back if you're going down this direction. So essentially, I had a girlfriend who was also in this line of work, and she's like, hey, she's my best friend, and she's like, hey, I'm also in broadcasting, but I know this is not sustainable. So, maybe you should try to get into the automotive business like I have here. I've been working, educating people for the auto show circuit. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I really want to, necessarily do that, but let me investigate. Well, I went down a rabbit hole. I was working with the Lincoln was the first brand that I started working with in the automotive business, and essentially what I had found, I was like, well, this is somewhat relatable to what I was going for, because what I'm doing is I was a presenter. So I would provide technical information about the vehicles at shows across the country on the stage with a microphone. So I'd be informing people about this. And at first I didn't really know much about the automotive industry, but I do live in Michigan in the Metro Detroit area. So naturally it is, you're going to get information regardless if you want it or not, living out here. So I got into the business there, and then it kind of just like took this path of not only doing the educational portion of auto shows, but also then getting into experiential marketing campaigns, where I'd be on a program for 2-3 months, and a car company would say, hey, we need someone to be the boots on the ground to go educate people, get butts in seats, have them experience the vehicles, and you need to tell them everything that you know about this in order to inform them about a purchasing decision. And for me, that was opening up a whole new world to me, because I actually got to like sit in the cars, literally like live on a daily basis with these vehicles and appreciate, and also pick out all the things that I understood were improvements that could be made in the future, and talk to customers. And that was the biggest thing, is like hearing so many people. And over this period of time where I've been in the business, I've talked to hundreds of thousands of people, sitting next to them and listening to them as to what their issues or what the things they like about a vehicle are in all these different types of segments. So worked with Lincoln for a long time, then started working with all these different brands. So I'm, I own my own company. I'm an independent contractor. So whenever there's a new product launch, companies will hire me to come in and educate. So what they do is they bring me into their headquarters, and then I go to all the different departments and find out all the information that I need based on this new product launch and the brand itself, and then tell people about it. Well, then I got into not only the luxury side of the automotive business, but then started getting into all these different realms. So ultra luxury categories, like working for Rolls-Royce and McLaren. So I've seen pretty much every category that you could see. But back in about, I would say like 2015 or 14 or so, I was on a program with BMW launching the i3. And I had test drove a Tesla Model S back in like 2012 because I just was like, wow, seems very interesting. But really spending more time with the i3 shifted my mindset because I was like, this is so much fun to drive. It feels like a little go-kart. It's super exciting. Why is no one talking about this really? And so then I decided pretty much not shortly after that I was going to dedicate myself to specializing in electric vehicles, electrified vehicles. So I did a lot of plug-in hybrid programs. And then I got into dealer training and training not only dealer partners of brands, but then their employees, amongst other things. And so companies will hire me for programs like that. But as you can imagine, with a lot of people during the pandemic, I couldn't do my job because it either involved going to events where there are mass markets of a lot of people, or going into the dealership and being face-to-face working with dealer partners or in the office with the employees. And I was like, I got to do something. Like I want to still do my job, but how can I do this? So my producer and I, Tim, if you guys have seen any of my stuff, you probably heard me talk about him because we're working together on, creating this brand, but also he helps film everything with me and edit and all this other stuff. But essentially, we're like, we got to come up with something to do to continue to do the job we love to do. And with electrification, there's a lot of education that's still needed amongst consumers. And there's a lot of myths. There are a lot of unfortunate situations where people want to believe certain talking points that are politically motivated. And I felt that it would be a great opportunity to share my experience with the breadth of knowledge and getting into all these different types of vehicles and hearing from consumers to provide my perspective in a really more digestible manner for people. And also, there's not a lot of females, generally speaking, in the car business. There are some that I very much respect, but that aren't really specializing in electric vehicles. And so I felt like it was a good opportunity to shine in that aspect. So that's pretty much how I got here. And then I was like,
all right, good night. That's it, everybody. Thanks,
You're right,
thanks for joining us. Misco Electric. Again, I told you, we just plug in and go. I mean, it's like,
I know it's weird.
No, it's good. And I appreciate that kind of insight because I think, just going to just your social media, and if it's, you see all these different avenues that you have explored, it's good to kind of get and understand why you are here. Like just talking to future or previous guests, there was an aha moment. And it sounds like you had an aha moment where you're already diving in, one into automotive, then two into EV. And that really expanded your horizons and your eyes got bigger and said, wow, what a great opportunity. And especially obviously during the control delete of the pandemic, you had to diversify the blip. Yeah. So I think it's great to understand what your background is and why you're at. And the future is so bright, right? Just in this EV world. And that's why we're having this conversation. And it's really interesting to see, again, your two wheel, your four wheel, and your infrastructure. So that's really cool.
To your point, like, why also people are like, well, why aren't you just focusing on the automotive side of things since that's your experience and your background? I, in my off time, like to spend my time outdoors. I go remote camping. I love hiking. I love going scuba diving. I love all these activities. And, I'm not the average EV owner, and I've had an EV since like 2016, but I'm not the typical buyer. So I'm the type of person, since I don't have like a regular job where I commute to every single day, my drives are usually road trips. So the majority of my mileage on my EVs is road trip miles. So I've seen the progression of the infrastructure over time as well. But I also understand that things are very expensive and not everyone can afford getting into an EV at this stage, since it is, a higher price point right now for a lot of people to get into, and considering the form factors that fit different people's lifestyles. Yeah. So for me, I was like, you know what? E-bikes are really intriguing. And I do like biking, generally speaking. So why not try to go down that avenue and introduce new products to people that might fit their lifestyle in a means that they can daily commute with one of them, or if they want to just go rip on the trails or whatnot. So I felt like holistically e-mobility should have been approached in a means that everyone can have access to it in a lot of different ways, whether that's, a scooter or a bike or a skateboard or whatnot. I just think opening up that freedom to more options for transportation for people at an accessible price point is crucial. And to your point with the infrastructure thing, I am a huge advocate, or a stan, as the kids say nowadays. Like, we need more protected bike lanes. So, on the policy side of things, I do want to fight for that more in the future, and especially in my state, it is an automotive state. We don't have a lot of public transportation, but I do think it's a priority to try to get more protected bike lanes for people to be able to adopt e-bikes and the like.
Yeah, and like you said, there's so many different. I was looking at social media yesterday, and I was not aware of this company at all. And a friend of mine, T-Pain, he's a rapper. He's a
Your buddy?
musician, and yeah, and he put up this video, and I'd never seen these things. The shift robotics, the moonwalkers. Have you seen these things?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, yeah. I want to get them. BJ Burtwell's a
I'm
friend of
not
mine,
friends
and
with T-Pain, so unfortunately not. You got the
but
inside
but
scoop.
but yeah, but he's like, hey, I'm gonna check out these new moonwalkers. They go 7 miles per hour. You put them on your feet, and it's like an active roller skate thing.
I've
It's
seen a
crazy.
couple versions of this. So I haven't seen that one in particular, but I went to CES at the beginning of the year. I won a Media Trailblazer award to go
Yeah,
there and cover
I
all
saw
the
that.
e-mobility
Congratulations, by the way.
stuff.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was such a blast. I love that show. It's becoming like more of an auto show really than what we usually see typically with the Detroit Auto Show was in January. They moved it to September, but it was like, okay, this is kind of taking over your area, but
But it
it
shows the pivot of technology and application in automotive and what automotive's doing. So it's not just TVs
exactly.
and toasters; it's full cars that are having TVs and toasters in them, right? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's incredible. So yeah, that was super fun. But I did see I think they were called rollskers. They're a
Okay.
similar concept where they were propelled a little bit. So if you did stride forward, your stride was much quicker and much further because of that
Yeah.
propulsion that was allotted in that device. So yeah,
Who's doing
it's crazy.
who's doing the best job as far as alt? So again, we've had Jackrabbit on this. I've had Jackrabbit. I've had Super 73. But I see you really like the carry-all bikes, almost like a large. I see a lot of these. I live in California, but I've seen them in. We used to live in Arizona, in Gilbert, Arizona. I saw you were traveling in Gilbert. Um,
Yep.
but who's doing the best job in your mind on two wheels or a car? A lot of people are going down to one car. So you get one EV, you get a big bike that you could take your kids or you could take your stuff or, who do you think is doing it?
Well, it's interesting because there are so many players right now. There are like over 400 e-bike manufacturers that are putting their name in the game, basically. So it is really challenging. But what I've found from hearing from people on my videos, commenting, and also just being out in public while I'm riding my bikes and stuff, and people asking me questions, now they know they're like, "Oh, you review them? Tell me everything. This is what I want." Is people are looking for a relatively decent price point, whether that's around $1,000 to $2,000. They're also looking for a lot of times they want to be able to have a service network, which is, I think, challenging for a lot of the direct to consumer bike companies because that's their main advantage of their profit margins to be able to go straight to the customer. But when it comes to repairability or serviceability, yeah, you might be able to get parts from them, but can you just go to a local shop and someone put in the labor to fix it for you?
Mhm.
So there's some concern there. So that's a big priority. And also, like you said, form factor. I find that the majority of people that I talk to really love the fat tire sector of the e-biking, but there are so many options. Like, it is insane how many choices you have as far as form factor goes. So I think the big players that we see in the business with rad power bikes, Aventon, Ride One Up, I would consider is up there as well, and Velatric. Those are the four I think that are really high volume, that are providing a close enough experience for a lot of people to get the price point that they want and mash it up with the dealer network that will support them, but also provide enough of the form factor that they're looking for to fit their lifestyle. So I think those guys are doing a pretty good job. But if you watch my reviews, I always structure them in a way that says, these are the good things that I like about this bike. But then here are some ways that they can improve, because I do think that there are lots of opportunities with improvement, not only from like a build standpoint or the dealer network standpoint, but also just, gosh, technology is taking off. And the fact that we have some e-bikes out there in the world where you can have GPS location tracking, have it integrate with your phone like Apple Find My, fingerprint readers. All of this is so exciting to me. And you want to have anti-theft systems. Another concern a lot, as I'm sure you've probably heard, is the UL certification on the battery. So I'm really hoping that these brands can get up to speed with certifying not only the bike itself for its electrical components, but the batteries too, so that they can, provide that peace of mind for customers. Because a lot of people say, oh, well, aren't they going to catch fire? And, it's such a small subset, and mostly from really cheap batteries that people are DIYing that end up catching fire in apartment buildings that we've seen in New York for the headlines. So it's a very rare occurrence, but people do want that sense of security, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's a buyer beware market, right? And we've seen that. And I know in LA there was a warehouse that was on fire for days because it just couldn't put it out. I mean, and again, Jackrabbit most recently, his batteries are FAA certified. So I was like, why? And then explanation, buyer beware. What is your, as you say, you utilize that word, form factor. What necessities are you desiring for your experience? Are you looking to just have some fun, put some smiles on faces? Or are you legit, like my homie Dennis? He rides his every day. They're down to one car, and I think
It's
that's really
incredible.
interesting. So yeah, it really is. Yeah, and I saw you like did a review on the remots. Seeing something like a supercar. So we go from roller
I know.
scoots, right, and then you go to remots, and you're like 250 miles per hour in an electric vehicle. And I heard something about Bugatti utilizing the remots engine system in their vehicle, so they're claiming some stat. I don't know. I'm really looking forward. My buddy is a North American driver for remots, so he's trying to get me lined up with them.
Oh,
And
quite a job.
yeah, I know, right? So I'd because I work in the automotive space, so I announce car races and a few different things, and yeah, so Formula Drift, Nitro Cross, and a bunch of other. I was just out in Michigan for the Ford Mustang GTD, which is their new supercar.
Yes,
Yeah,
awesome.
so yeah, I presented that. So I'm familiar with your role as being a product specialist. I don't do product specialist stuff, but I work with a lot of your
You
kind of
understand it. Yes,
yeah.
exactly. So talking to those types of people. Well, my work with some of the ultra luxury brands like McLaren, I have a extreme appreciation for engineering and just the incredible feats that these companies are making to try to eke the most performance and efficiency out of a vehicle and that's also why I love remots, because and I was very fortunate that back in 2018 I was working at the Quail, and he and I think it was one of his early employees, I can't remember his name, came up to our display, and we talked to them for a while, and they told us a story about how they were sourcing the batteries, and it was just like mind blowing to me. I'm like, wow, like you guys really are pushing forward in a manner that's really channeling engineering and efficiency to the next level. So I'm rooting for them, because I think what they're doing is amazing. And now that they have investment with a lot of the big OEMs, the Porsche side of things, and the Bugatti Remots partnership now, it's only going to go up from here, in my opinion, with them.
And there's such a trickle down effect, right? So there's a trickle
Yes.
down of if you over engineer and you really start to go to the moon, figuratively speaking and metaphorically speaking, now you can go cross country. You don't need to
Yeah.
go to the moon, but if you take all that application of technology and insight and engineering and speed, and then you could apply it to roller skates, right? I
Yeah,
mean, I
exactly.
feel, but no, but
It's true
legitimately,
though. There is
you
a trickle
know,
down effect. And a lot of people might not know this about me, but being in the automotive business, with all the appreciation of the advancement of technology in cars, I love Formula One. I love watching the progression in competition. Also, being a sports reporter, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you like competition clearly. So, it's just the element of bringing it all together, and then making all these efficiencies to not only bring the cost down for people, because that's what we'll see in
Mhm.
the EV business over time, the advancement of chemistries with battery technology and motor technology. And it's just such an exciting time. It's like the next revolution in the automotive
Mhm.
space. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, because some people are kicking and screaming and saying, like, I don't want to give up my internal combustion engine vehicle. And it's like, well, you don't have to. That's the beauty, is
Yep.
don't, like, a lot of people are scared with all this political talk that they're going to have to give up their cars. It's like, no, like, we can all exist in this world together and appreciate all of them in a different manner. But more options are being made available that fit people's lifestyle, so they're going to be buying them, especially if it makes sense from a cost standpoint.
Mhm.
I actually did not buy an electric vehicle because I was interested in the green aspect, or really, like, my main priority is, like I mentioned before, I was traveling 2-3 months at a time, and my car was sitting. And I would come back to my car and I'd have to fix something. I'd have to spend my off time getting it repaired or taking it to oil change, all these other things. And I was just like, I am so sick and tired of this. And the EV solved that for me. So that was my main driving motivation to get an EV. And I think we're starting to see that as people adopt EVs now,
Mhm.
that it's becoming, not the early adopters that are interested in this new technology or that are trying to get it because they want to have a sustainable lifestyle, which is totally fine. It's just
Yeah.
there's more options now for us to choose from and make it a real lifestyle decision.
And it's really not as scary and intimidating as it once was. Now,
Right. Better
getting
range.
getting better range, getting your house outfitted so you can get the charger going, quick charge or just standard charge overnight. It's more of a lifestyle now. It's less intrusive into what we've commonly known. And when we went from horse-drawn carriages, the horses didn't just go away. They still had to
No.
transport fuel or transport other things or other basically consumables that vehicles needed, right? So it's not like you say, the ice is going to go away. It's a complement. And I think that anybody that really just no, there's no way I'm going electric. Like I said, BC, most notably BC Moto, he was just like, nope, I'm a car guy. I need engine, I need smell, I need this sensory overload. And I've really enjoyed
It's
this
fine.
journey, and I'm learning
Yeah.
alongside of you. And I think we're all learning. You're never going to know it all. I always say metaphorically,
Yes.
you go into that Harry Potter library, just all the books and the ladders and all the dust, and you can never read all those books. But sure as shoot, you can ask Misco Electric and be like, hey, what was your experience with that one bike or that one car or that one charging station? And that's a great segue.
Yeah.
the
And
the
there's,
the infrastructure. So you know what I mean,
yeah.
though? Like
I,
that's why you're an asset.
Well, thank you. And I
Yep.
appreciate that, because I really hope to be, and I want to continue to improve, especially on the content side of providing more educational material, because I think that there's still a lot more room for that. But to be fair, a couple of years ago, I was on NBC Sports on a TV show called Charge Across America. And at that stage in 2021, I think that was, we drove 10 days across the country in a Mustang Mach-E on a CCS compatible vehicle across the country. So I know for a fact from my experience, and also just road tripping in my EVs and doing reviews in EVs, at the beginning of this year, I spent 4 months with the Nissan Aria on a program educating their dealers and driving that around the Northeast, which is limited charging infrastructure. But I think what's important for people to remember is that you need to match your dwell time with what you're doing in order to optimize the experience with EVs. So, I was charging on some infrastructure that was public out there, but every night I was trying to treat it as if it was like my experience at home, where I'm finding a hotel that has charging where I can plug it in. And in the morning, guess what? I go to work with a full charge and I'm good to go.
Yeah. What is that
So,
word? You said dwell time. I've never heard anybody use that.
yes,
What is that?
match the dwell time. So, what are you doing in your life? If I'm going to a grocery store and say I might need a charge sometime on that day, then utilize a lower power charging, so level 2 charging station, to, depending on how much time you're going to stay. If you're going to run in there for like 15 minutes, you probably want to choose the DC fast charger to get
Right.
the juice that you're looking for. But otherwise, if you're going to work out, or if you're going to work, or if you're going to a grocery store, doing these tasks that you're already going to be doing throughout your life, then match that time with the appropriate charging experience, and you will find that your life is going to be so much better. It's going to be
Right.
much more convenient. And I think people are having a hard time still understanding that concept because, maybe they want to get an EV, but then they think they have to go to a DC fast charging because they don't have a home charger all the
Mhm.
time. But there are way more level twos out there than there are DC fast charging stations. So just kind of keeping that in mind is that I'm already doing this task. Let me charge while I'm doing this task so it's not obtrusive. Make it as
Yeah.
seamless as possible.
And you do that with your devices, whatever
Yep.
phone you have, you're planning accordingly to see, okay, you get gosh, what's it called? Power FOMO. You get kind
Yeah.
of you get scared. You're like, hey, you get in a car with a homie and you're like, hey, what percentage you at? Like, okay, well, I got you beat. I'm lower. I'm only at 15. So give me that cable, right? I mean, we're all guilty
Yep.
of that. So it's kind of one of those things. But the infrastructure in California is probably the strongest, would you say? And also what okay, break it down. I feel like you're ready to say pros and cons. So
Well,
where is it missing for the infrastructure, the con?
it is evolving so quickly, which is exciting because many people that thought it was impossible to do things like go across the country in an EV is starting to become a lot more easy. So like when I had the rally back in 2021 on that TV show. By the way, we won. Ryan and I from the Kilowatts. He's great. He was my co-driver, but we
You're not
won.
competitive at all. You're not
No,
competitive
exactly
at
right.
all. First and
um,
foremost, we won.
right. So during that time, you could make it across the country. Mind you, there were limited options as far as the DC fast charging we could choose in order to go that route. And in some cases, it was like that's the only DC fast charger in a 100-mile area, so you have to stop there. So for one, it is doable. But the fact that the IRA, the federal infrastructure bill that's going to be deploying all these stations, is going to make it possible for everyone to go wherever they want to go because every 50 miles on highway corridors there are going to be at least 4 dispensers for people to charge at. And so this is a big deal. A lot of states have already made approvals on their bids and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be a huge shift once that all gets installed. And still, that's a few years down the road. It has to be done within a 5-year period, I believe. So that's going to be a big difference. But the reliability is the huge hurdle at this stage because if you're considering when some of these stations were put in, it didn't match a lot of the technology that we see in the vehicles today. So, what I mean by that is that a lot of the charging infrastructure from the first gen of these DC fast chargers were compatible with 400 volt architecture of electric vehicles. But now we're starting to see 800 volt architecture and higher. And so, how are these vehicles going to behave with that equipment that is outdated in a sense because of the technology advancing so quickly? Which is great to see that there have been some programs put in place where there's a repairability for states to essentially help get those stations back up and running. And of course, you can have your argument on whether or not you think that is right for us to be paying for that, but the fact is that we are.
Yep. Yep.
And I think reliable infrastructure is crucial, especially at this stage where people are finding the choices of vehicles of form factors that they want to go with, but they are so nervous about going on a road trip, which they don't do too often. And the daily average commute for someone is within 30 miles. So a lot of people can get an EV right now, but they're just scared. They have charging anxiety or range anxiety, and they want to be able to do whatever the heck they want as far as driving or towing in a lot of
Mhm.
cases.
Yeah,
So,
the Lightning, right? I mean, the Lightning's a hot rod,
yeah,
the whole new Ford
it's
Lightning, so
a brilliant car. But, in my review of that, I said they need to do something about the charging infrastructure, for one.
Mhm.
And now we're seeing that a lot of these car companies realize that the charging experience is crucial because they don't want these people to drop off. They want to buy their vehicle and have a good experience and spread word of mouth, get other people to go electric and buy their product. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that it's a holistic ownership experience. And charging is a huge element of that.
Mhm.
And so I love to see that they're integrating the NACS connectors in many of the new automakers, but also now there are like 8 automakers that are starting their own charging network that have
Uh,
announced NACS or maybe haven't announced NACS.
yeah.
So there's even more infrastructure on the horizon. So it's wild, but I think Tesla just knew that they had to have a reliable charging network in order to make mass market EVs viable. And they
Mhm.
have executed so brilliantly on that. It is reliable. All you do is plug it in and it works.
Yeah.
So for other people to have that same experience now across the country in many different form factors and brands, because there are brand loyalists, like we need to
Mhm.
fulfill those needs and desires for people that want to go electric.
Yeah, just like Chevy and Ford, it's gonna be Rivian or Tesla, right? Or you stick with your brand, and I love what Ford has done, so on the same side of that, Jim Farley says, "It was a really tough job driving that Lightning cross country," but at the same job, he's saying, "I really love ICE," and that's why he's going GTD, GT4, GT3, but still doing EcoBoost, and Toyota has their stance, right? And Dodge has theirs with their new all-electric Demon, right? So it's really interesting to see just where we're at, and it just keeps coming up, and there's a little unknown, but that's why we try to unearth it. And I like what you said. I'm going to reiterate it. Make it more digestible.
Hmm.
It's here's your voice. Yours is yours and your experience, and somebody might relate to your story being in Michigan, surrounded by Detroit Motor City, and then again, two wheels as opposed to four. You like being outside because we know when it gets cold, Michigan, you're staying inside. Talk about your dwell. What'd you call it? Dwell time. Your dwell
Yeah,
time.
it
A
matches
lot
the
of
dwell
dwell time.
time.
A lot of dwell time, Michigan. When it's cold.
That's
I'm
right.
from California. My wife went to school in Michigan. My wife is in the automotive industry as well. So she went to,
Awesome.
yeah, she went to Northwood University, which is there in Midland. So I don't know if you're familiar,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Not
So
too far from me.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, there you
I
go.
think what's crucial for people to understand as well, because some people are frustrated with that, of the legacy automakers not jumping on EVs and making a lot of EVs at this stage. But you have to understand, like, they have billions of dollars sunk into existing, manufacturing of those internal combustion engine products that are giving them the profit margins to be able to build EVs. Not only that, but now with all the subsidies as far as them producing batteries here and final assembly with the tax credits and all that, they're getting some help, which I think
Mhm.
is kind of needed in order to
Yeah.
prop the industry up to make the transition. Because we see over if you look globally in other markets overseas, it is insane. The market share for like China for EVs is over 30%. And in here in the US, we're just hitting about, like, we're still under 10%. We're like 6 or 7%
Mhm.
ish. So, and it's going fast. It is going
Yep.
fast, but we need help in that transition. So,
Yep, education, assistance, just embracing of it, right? So, all right, you said you're competitive. You like Formula One. What do you think of Formula E or E racing or what's going? And I'm not talking video game stuff. I'm talking literally.
simulator. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not talking sim stuff. I'm talking, Formula E or again, I announced Nitro Cross, which has made the pivot to all electric. We have the FC1X, which is an all electric 1,000 horsepower. You got to come out to race. I think you'll love it.
Yeah.
Rallycross. So yeah, so what do you think? Who's doing well in that? I mean, there's scooter racing. It's all
Yes.
electric.
Um, I think Formula E is so cool. I get a lot of people, well, Formula One's going to go electric one day. Well, not likely, for
Yeah.
a couple different reasons. I mean, the next generation in 2026, their hybrid is going to rely like 50% on electric. So there's going to be a new generation that gets it closer to that. But Formula E has an exclusive contract for a long period of time to be the only electric racing under the FIA. And I think Formula E it's incredible how much that evolution has happened just in that time frame. I think they started in like 2014 or something like that. So to get where they're at now with the Gen 3 cars, the next generation that are even more high powered and more advanced, especially from not only a performance aspect, but from a charging aspect, it is very exciting to see, because that also has a trickle down effect. Same as what Formula One is, like, you are implementing certain technology and that can go to the road cars that are on the road today. And it's proven true that we've already seen it. Jaguar in the I-Pace, Porsche in the Taycan, they're using similar technology that they're using in Formula E and putting it in their road vehicles. And it's just going to get better. And of course, I love competition. I went to the Formula E race actually in Portland this year, and to be on the ground looking at everything in the garages. And actually, I got a really lucky chance to talk to Michael Andretti during that time, which ultimately his driver won the championship this year. That was super exciting. But even, him talking about how, they just love racing.
Mm-hmm.
The Andretti team loves racing, and they want to race no matter what the powertrain configuration is. And we see that it sounds like they're getting approved to go into Formula One.
Just got approved. I was just gonna say I was gonna let you talk, but they just got approved. 11th team on the FIA F1
I'm excited
grid.
for that. Like, I
Andretti
think
approved.
that is amazing. And I think that teams like that want to compete, they're going to do whatever they can to advance the technology and work with partners that will move forward in that direction. And of course, there are going to be sustainability trickle downs that affect it. And especially with a team like, Andretti, Formula E, one of the major benefits of that racing series is they do focus on sustainability, but the logistics of all racing around the world is a huge tax on, greenhouse gas emissions. So Formula E does a really good job of lowering the impact by making efficiencies on the logistics side of things. There are a lot of videos online. If you guys are interested in this, I'd highly recommend watching them because I just found them so fascinating, those means that they're taking in order to drop that greenhouse gas emission effect, not only from the automotive standpoint of the racing vehicles, but on the logistics side, which is major. And, Formula One could take some notes from Formula E, in my opinion, on that side of things. So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is a traveling circus, and that's just an old adage. It's an old saying. So, not saying that it's a bunch of clowns, but
I
it's
think you could probably say that it is a circus.
well, it is. And an Extreme E is another one where they're electric
Yes.
off road, and they get they're in Sardinia, but they're out on a big boat. It's a big cargo boat. So they're moving the cars, they're moving the batteries. So talk about your greenhouse effects and all that, because some people buy them because they just want to see more green in their pocket as opposed to green in the sky. So that's that whole perspective on what you're trying to execute from a lifestyle standpoint as well. So I love that you're into motorsports, and you talk so emphatically about it. That's awesome. What else? Are you a shoe gal? Are you into shoes at all?
No.
No. I just went a hard left because I had to do it because this is Electrify Expo. We're promoting. We want to get people into the doors either in Miami or Austin, or get them going to Electrify Expo, which is kind of the fair and the traveling circus that is all things electrification. But at Electrify Show Off, which is the car show now, because now we have teams that are called Ruin. They're ruining, quote unquote, ruin their car, slam it, wheels, body kits, all that stuff. They also have a shoe off. So you gotta wear your heat on the
Oh,
feet. So I just
I
threw it.
see.
I have Birkenstocks on if it's any consolation. So
With socks or without?
without currently, because I'm
Okay.
just in my house. So but they are the Bostons. I don't know if you saw
I
Birkenstock
just
is
want
going
people to
public.
have proper judgment on you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dude, we live. I mean, I have a 17-year-old son, and he fit checks me. He's like, that's cool. All right, like whatever. But no, I had to take a hard left just because that's what I do. If now if you listen to me in the future, if you see me around, you'll see that
I
that's
get
just
it.
what I
Yeah.
do. So
No, I went to Electrify Expo at the beginning of the year in May, and I didn't really know what to expect because it's still somewhat early for the expo itself, and it has grown so much and gone to
mhm,
so many different cities. But I absolutely loved that they were doing the show off, and literally I could not believe how many it's like if you are into e-bikes or any kind of e-mobility device, that is an incredible place to go to shop and to
right.
see all the options and try them out right there with all the tracks and having a ton of different automakers there so you can sit in the cars and see them. But also have it in an accessible way where it's not like pushing this sustainability message down your throat. Like, I think one of the coolest things behind the scenes is that, they had a sponsorship with Anchor, I think it was. They're powering all the tents there.
Mhm.
So they're not like doing it in a way that seems like elitist. And I think that's been a problem in a lot of cases for EVs is that, whether it's, because they are a little bit more expensive, but they think certain people, it's a little hoity toity to go EV. But honestly, like, it's opening the door to more people to show them that it's not necessarily that, and
Yeah.
it's more accepting.
Yeah. Yep.
We
No,
need
and
that.
yeah, and you were at the Long Beach one, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. It was amazing.
and talk about a city that is really accepting of not only EV, but again, mobility. Talk about your bike lanes. I mean, it is such a bike friendly city. It's packed. I mean, Long Beach, I love best bar in the world, Pike Bar, by the way, Cherry and Fourth. Shout out to my boy Chris Reese. Had to
Oh, nice.
plug
I'll
him.
have to hit that up.
Really good ceviche and good fish
Mm.
tacos, just FYI. So, um, but we talk about bikes, we talk about anything else, any other companies you are like, wow, that they are doing a good job. Like you kind of toot the horn
Well,
because again, you do such a good job of how diverse, and that's what I really want to celebrate with your social media and your perspective.
well, thank you. I
Yeah.
know the YouTube algorithm hates me, but because you would think electric is niche enough, but it's not. So
No.
actually, I'm in the process of like splitting up my channel into different sub channels because of that. Prioritizing those different needs because not all the people that watch my e-bike content want to see car content or industry CEO interviews and stuff like that. So that's in process right now. But um, I think especially on the automotive side, I think obviously Tesla is going to be a leader for a very long time because they're constantly innovating and they're showing that they don't have to follow a rule book. They can make their own way in a lot of different sectors, whether it's energy or cars or charging or whatnot. But also, as far as the legacy automotive companies, Hyundai, Kia, I've been saying this for a while. Like, I've been so impressed with the products that they're
Mhm.
coming out with. I'm super excited for the EV9 because we need third row
Mhm.
SUVs for families, but also efficient technology that makes sense. Don't just slap more batteries in there. Make an efficient vehicle. Get into the engineering and figure out how you can make the system work together to provide more range but have less material so it costs less to the automaker but also costs less to the consumer. Ultimately, I think that is very important and I think they are going down that direction.
Mhm.
Um, I will say I'm impressed with Ford too, because Ford has basically slapped their most famous nameplates and have made them electric. And that is
Mhm.
a gutsy move, especially considering that those are brands like the F 150, the best selling vehicle on the planet,
Mhm.
and the Mustang. Having, that's very polarizing. I can't tell you how many people I've heard say it's not a Mustang.
Yeah, I know, right?
But that's a risk. That's a huge risk. And to start off, like, I mean, they had the Focus Electra a long time ago, but now in this mass market stage where they have longer range EVs that are viable, and to choose two huge nameplates like that is really impressive. And today they just had announced that they are coming out with a new trim level and having a heat pump now in the F-150 Lightning, which is, something I said in my review. I think that you guys need to prioritize efficiency, and I think that they are going that direction. And it's crucial to see them not only come out with those famous nameplates, but then make those improvements over time, over the short period of time that they've been producing them. So
Uh,
those are the companies right now that I've been keeping my eye out mostly in just celebrating the embracement of going electric.
Yeah, you just dove right into it. I'm looking at, your Pikes Peak hill climb, that experience,
Yes.
documenting Ford performance, their super
Super
van.
van.
Yeah, and
That was so much
yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
Ford invited me out to go see the super van and talk to some of their team about, why are they doing this? It was at the Goodwood Festival of Speed
mhm.
to try to set a record there.
Yep.
And they did set a record at Pikes Peak while I was there as well. But to try to advance it on even a different, I mean, like super van, like just look at it. It's
Yeah,
insane looking.
yeah. No, it does.
What
It,
a
it it is
weird
amazing.
weird attempt, but it has a storied name overseas in Europe, so why not continue with that theme?
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Misco Electric. I won't take up any more of your time.
Oh, it's been
Anything
great.
else? Where can they find you? What's going on? What do you want to plug? I mean, shameless plugs. Go for it.
Yes. So pretty much on every social media platform, you can find me at Misco Electric, all one word. Instagram, Twitter, or X now, I guess, Facebook. I'm pretty much everywhere. And then YouTube is my main platform where I create the content. So you can check that out. And again, I will be splitting up some channels so that will be a little bit more diversified as far as if you want to stick with just e bikes, but feel free to subscribe to them all.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, you're making it really digestible. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your diverse perspectives, not just,
Yes.
two wheel, four wheel, but also even being into motorsports and talking about that.
Well, I'll say one more thing is I have on my website an events tab, so miscoelectric.com, and I post where I'm going to be going for events. So if you guys want to meet up, I host group rides. Actually, this year I've been hosting group rides with Aventon, going around the country and getting people together to ride their e-bikes together. I have
Cool.
one more stop coming up in mid-October, but that's not the end of it. So I'll be at a lot of other events and doing group rides throughout the next, hopefully foreseeable future. So definitely keep an eye out on that if you want to meet up and ride.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Misco Electric here on Electrify Podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Electrify Podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.